Good evening. It's now 6:30, and I call to order the regular meeting of the Victoria City Council. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on our agenda this evening is announcements. The City Council will hold its first 2025 preliminary budget discussion at the City Council Workshop on June 24th at 5 p.m. Join us on Wednesday, June 12th for Project Lifecycle Bike Repair Clinic in Bayfront Park from 5 to 7 p.m. Also on Wednesday, June 12th is our first concert series in the park featuring Ragtown, which will be held in Bayfront Park at the Charles Thune Bandstand from 6 to 8 p.m. There are no other announcements this evening, and our next item on the agenda is to adopt the final agenda. Council, can I get a motion?
Motion to adopt the final agenda?
Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is open forum. This is the opportunity for anyone to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda and not in application form that will be coming to the council at a future date. We've had two individuals registered to speak this evening, Jody Edstrom, Director of the Carver County Library Systems, and Branch Manager Patrick Jones. Please come forward. Ms. Edstrom, are you going to start us off this evening?
Yes, I am. Great to
Please.
be here tonight. Thanks for having us. I've been in the role of library director for a year now, so great to be back here. I'm going to share some big picture system highlights for you, and then I'm going to turn it mostly over to Patrick so he can delve into what's been happening here specifically at Victoria.
Very good. Thank you.
So as I started to pull together our annual report for this year, and you each have a copy of that to take with you tonight, the theme of community really emerged. In terms of community learning, it was really our goal to continue to provide access to all of our community members for learning, lifelong learning. So a couple new things that emerged out of that were bilingual story times in both English and Spanish that we offered in our branches, and some health literacy workshops targeted at our adult generation. You know, yoga, mindfulness. I know there was some chair-seated yoga here that happened for seniors here at Victoria, so some great programs. Community gathering, we just continue to embrace that concept in all of our spaces to bring not only maybe folks that have known each other for years in their communities together, but to embrace new people that are coming in and getting that opportunity to meet and make connections with both each other as patrons and our staff as well. We, of course, continue to build on our partnerships, whether it's with our cities, Parks and Rec, Master Gardeners. The list is really, we could talk for a long time about the partnerships that we really value and know that that brings value to what we do in our communities. We're very fortunate to have the Charles Dalkey Grant Program continue, and so some of those newer programs I spoke about earlier were a product of that grant funding outside of our regular levy funding, as well as our library foundation that supports a lot of additional work that we're able to do and offer. Some exciting things that happened, we introduced automatic renewals. So if you have a book checked out, it automatically renews up to 4 times unless another patron is waiting for it. We now have text messaging notifications, so if that's your preferred method, you can sign up for that. Of course, I already touched on partnerships, and our program, such a big part of what we do, and really trying to meet people where they're at, whether it's in person in our branches, whether it's still hybrid or virtual, because we know some people really appreciate that, especially in the winter months. And we also have embraced something called self-directed programs, where we offer activities where patrons can come in and enjoy and experience an activity on their own time, in their own way, in our spaces. Checkouts, we reached over 1.3 million for both digital and print. We do know that some of that, of course, is attributed to automatic renewals that kicked into place, but one thing that we continue to see huge growth in is the digital checkout, so that's been a huge piece for us. Storytime attendance topped over 10,000 kids across our system this year, such an important part of what we do and what we offer. One of our youth programs that we featured on our YouTube channel, it was a music program from McPhail, reached over 22,000 views. And our library meeting rooms were booked over 875 times. Those spaces are primarily at our Chanhassen branch, but it's just something that we want communities to realize that we're hearing from our patrons that they have a need for those spaces. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Patrick. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, Patrick. Welcome back.
Oh, thank you. Patrick Jones, branch manager at Victoria and also at Chanhassen. I just want to go a little bit into the numbers, and I was working here at Victoria today, and these numbers bore it out from what I saw. 3/4 of the things that check out downstairs are for kids, which is great. Every person came in today seemed to come in with kids, and they came in with no books, and they left with a lot of books, and that happens a lot. As you see, 71% is just print material. So I just want to talk about some other things that we did and then answer any questions you have. We did, as Jody mentioned, lots of programs for adults this year. We do a program, in the summer we do summer reading program, but in winter we do a winter reading program for adults. We have a seed library, which we started 2 years ago, which has been very successful. We did a day, I think it was May 18th, where we had our friends had a book sale, while outside we had a music performer. And we did the same thing again this year as well. We go to we partner with actually the city to do outreach at the farmers market, and we'll be there again this year. She mentioned we did chair yoga and lots of arts programs for adults. So I don't even think that while the circulation still leans heavy on kids, we are doing programming for adults. We mentioned bilingual story time. That was something that was very successful here. We make good use of those tables, especially in the summer with craft and other programs. You make good use of the outdoor space by having story time and as many programs as we have in the summer outside. When we couldn't get people, maybe you might remember last summer, there was a lot of air quality issues. We jammed a bunch of people downstairs and had a rock concert, which was fun for us. Not so much fun for the people up here, I would imagine. And then, again, this wonderful space outside, we had a chalk the sidewalk, where kids just were given some sidewalk chalk and got to make whatever they wanted. And then we had two really big programs. One was we had Halloween, which we teamed with the Victoria Business Association. They sponsored, and we had lots and lots of kids in. And then for Light Up Victoria, we had we had 150 people come into the building just for a craft that we did that evening. And we couldn't do all of this without the support of two organizations, without the support of the Friends of the Library and without the support of the City of Victoria. Thanks.
Very good. Council, questions for Jody or Patrick?
No.
Yeah, Ms. Swanson, please.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. I also want to commend the Victoria Library, especially Patrick, as he is on our senior advisory committee, and he also is very active in that group and is also looking to partner with some of our other fall programs that are coming up this year in 2024. So thank you both for what you do, and thank you for your participation.
Very good. I do have a question for you,
Yeah,
Patrick. That's a great connection to our senior committee, our senior community, I should say, through that senior advisory committee. Do you see opportunity? I mean, obviously you see some opportunities. Is there something that's you consider to be kind of low-hanging fruit that you'd like to see implemented fairly quickly?
Well, I think there's a couple things. Number one, just for seniors, is one thing that I would like to see us do more of is some one-on-one technology assistance. Because we often get that as a question that came up in the senior commission a couple times. We tried doing classes, that didn't really work. So I think having Scott, our technology associate, maybe say Wednesday's the day the tech guy is here. Originally the tech people were here and we just moved them out because they weren't busy enough, but I think making it a special event would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I think another thing is we have two very creative librarians downstairs. Kristen Snyder, I would like to see her try to figure out more to do with teens. We have a very successful teen group at Chanhassen. I don't know if Victoria will support that, but I think one of the things we can do is just try to actively engage teens more with our collection. And Susan is just phenomenal. She's our social media librarian. And so I think what she comes up with is wacky ideas. She did a squirrel drawing contest. So the low-hanging fruit is to leave Susan alone and let Susan do really creative, wacky stuff that works.
Very good. I love it. Okay, thank you so much. Any other final thoughts?
You didn't win the squirrel drawing contest.
I
I'm
did
sorry.
not. I did not.
I'm sorry about that.
So am I.
had
Patrick,
no
so am
influence
I.
whatsoever. All right. Thanks all.
Thank you so much. All right, very good. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to address the council on an item that's not on the agenda or coming soon? All right. With that, we will move on to our consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are routine administrative and do not require deliberation, or are housekeeping items that are required by law. They're approved with one vote unless someone requests an item to be considered separately. Ms. Swanson, does the staff wish to pull anything from the consent agenda this evening?
None from staff, Mayor.
Anybody on council wishing to pull anything? Or anybody in the audience that would like to pull an item from the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Now moving on to our regular agenda. First item this evening, item 6.1, which is to review an agreement with Metronet for city fibers. And kicking us off on that discussion this evening is our Assistant City Manager, Alyssa Swanson. Ms. Swanson, please.
Thank you again, Mayor. Thank you, members of council. So yes, I will be presenting an item to consider an agreement with Metronet for city fibers. At any time during the presentation, do not hesitate to ask any questions. Additionally, we do have members from Metronet in the audience in person, but also virtually today. So if we have any questions for them, this is the opportunity to ask.
Very good. Welcome.
So just as an overview of exactly what you're looking at, and we'll get into the background for a second, but I just want to highlight exactly what we're talking about for this item. This is a proposed agreement between Metronet and the City of Victoria to provide dark fiber connections to 20 city-owned locations, whether that's facilities like our future fire station, lift stations, or other key utility infrastructure. And in exchange for that, the city would provide right-of-way services, permitting, and inspections for an entire city build-out that Metronet is proposing to conduct at no cost. So that is what more or less we're looking at here this evening. For some background, in 2022, Carver County established the Connect Up Carver initiative. This is through their program called CarverLink. And this program is to bring high-speed internet via fiber to each home and business within Carver County. And that same year, they also partnered with Metronet to conduct this initiative, bring this forward through that Connect Up Carver program. And they utilized federal dollars for this, some of their own county funding, as well as state and COVID funding as well. So this conversation also moved into Victoria. You may have heard that it has impacted other communities in Carver County as well. City of Carver, I think, is just wrapping up this project. Waconia is doing the same, and then also in the rural western part of the county. But in 2022, they came to Victoria with a proposal, or just to identify opportunities to bring this Connect Up Carver program to Victoria and to bring high-speed internet to every resident and business owner here. That conversation continued on and off throughout 2024, into which now we're brought with a formal agreement that was presented to us by Metronet. This agreement is, again, solely with Metronet, is not with Carver County, so it's just between the City of Victoria and Metronet. However, Carver County, through CarverLink, has assisted in drafting the agreement, as well as Attorney Vos over here reviewing and assisting and helping draft the agreement. So if this is to move forward, this project being proposed would complete a fiber build-out in Victoria's city limits and impact the city right away. If the agreement to provide fiber connection in exchange to providing right-of-way services approved, Metronet would follow more or less the same city typical process for a right-of-way. That includes completing a permit for what they call an LCP section. That is more or less a neighborhood or just an area that they'll apply for. It's a chunk of our community that says this is the project that we're working on right now or for this time period. They put that in a permit process. City staff reviews that LCP permit. We'll continue to go through our right-of-way process of receiving some sort of security, and then we'll obviously manage the locates as part of that. That project's then complete, then we'll move on to the next LCP section, or there might be some multiple LCP sections going on at the same time. The other part to that is staff will also be inspecting the project as its construction moves forward. Typical process, we don't inspect the right-of-way processes, but since this is such a large project, staff is looking at doing some small inspections scattered throughout a project. So if we're looking at one LCP, we might do some spot inspections, some in the beginning, some in the middle, and some at the end. From also hearing from Metronet, they're subcontracting some of the work, so making sure that we're inspecting at least some of each of the subcontractors to make sure that everything is running smoothly and they're not hitting locates, or making sure that they're going deeper than what our sand drain tile is and things like that. Metronet also has communicated a comprehensive communications plan to occur prior to construction and during construction, including postcards to be mailed, signs to be placed in neighborhood entrances, yard markers, and then they're also creating a construction site that will be more or less a hub to all residents in Victoria for project updates, as well as any questions or concerns they may have. In addition to that, the city is also creating its own page to talk about the project, what the project is about, how do you get in contact with Metronet, this project page, and then also helping field any questions and concerns from residents as well. So getting into that dark fiber piece, so Metronet would provide dark fiber strands to 20 city-owned locations. These sites are focused on core staffed facilities, such as, again, the new fire station, key utility infrastructure sites, wells, lift stations. And these sites would provide redundancy and communication to several areas that cause us communications issues, and then it would also provide stronger communication between the water treatment plant and the MAID communication hub there to some of these off-site locations. The city in 2022 utilized a third party to understand the cost associated with a project like this if we would to take this on and build out a fiber network ourselves, and the estimated cost of something at that time was $1.5 to $2 million. So just put it in perspective. And then again, in providing fiber, Metronet would not pay for typical right-of-way fees exchanged for the construction of the institutional fiber that is being brought forward or proposed this evening. It would continue the traditional management process. It's just we are more or less, they're providing us dark fiber at these 20 locations. We are not going to charge them for the cost of right-of-way permitting fees as well as the inspection process. The amount of the right-of-way service is challenging for us to estimate since our current right-of-way fees as per the fee schedule is calculated by per foot. And since this is a citywide build-out project, it's very hard for us to calculate exactly what that cost would be if we were to receive right-of-way permitting fees through this project. So again, really what we're looking at today is not the entirety of the build-out project, but really are we willing to partner with Metronet and bring together this agreement that would allow them to build us dark fiber to these 20 site locations, and then in turn we exchange them to do the right-of-way service for that larger project if they were to move forward in the city of Victoria. With that, I will stand for any questions. I'm sure there's lots, but then I also have a proposed motion on the screen, as well as Metronet is here to help answer any questions too. And if there's anything that I missaid, please feel free, Metronet, to speak up.
Okay, very good. Metronet, is there any further comment from you, or?
No, that was
Okay.
Spoken perfectly.
All right, very good.
Project director, if you guys have any.
I'm going to have you step up here to the microphone, so. I'm sorry, we can hear you, but the people at home cannot. So introduce yourself, please. Tell us who you are.
My name is Matt Ballou. I'm the project director for Metronet, working on this build. We call it City Build. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to myself directly. As stated, we have a whole web-based system for any questions, comments, concerns, underground sprinkler system, dog fence, your left dirt in my yard, so on and so forth. Anything that you're people in your city might have concern-wise, you can address there. Or if they just want to say, hey, you guys did a really good job, they can also do it there. But
All right.
it's pretty user-friendly, so.
Sounds great. Thank
But
you
that
so
was
much.
great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Just a quick question. How many other city build projects have you completed?
Metronet as a whole or my?
Yes, Metronet.
Oh, God, hundreds.
Okay.
Probably 150 at least minimum. Last year I completed 5 different cities, counting Waconia, LeSueur, Le Center, Carver, and there's one other, Cleveland, I'm forgetting. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. Any other questions? Right, thanks.
And then some of our other locations that aren't on this list, is that, could we presume that we already have a solution that covers us here?
That's a great question, council member, and I see your laptop. So he's talking about the attachment A there that lists out each of the city locations that's on the agreement. So those were obviously high targeted areas. There are more areas in our city that we would like to eventually get fiber established to. Some of our smaller parks, obviously they're going to be running fiber adjacent to those locations or near adjacent. So that is something, as we're moving forward with this process, we'll continue to look at and add to our CIP as we see that the timing works out, that we want to provide Wi-Fi or any sort of connection to those areas.
So are we connected to the existing fire station and water treatment plant already?
We are. Okay. So any of our current staff facilities other than the future fire station and our old public works building, which is not staffed, all the other ones, City Hall, the rec center, our current fire station / the water treatment plant are connected to fiber.
Okay, thank you.
And they're connected through the Carver link?
They are.
Okay. Can you share with us, if you know, what it costs to light that fiber? I know it's dark at this point in time, but at some point we're going to want to light it up. And do you know what that would cost as we kind of reach out into our parks and some of that kind of thing?
That is a great question, and I'm going to pull up an attachment to the agenda report, if I may.
And while she does that, Mr. Vos, you have been involved in fiber and these kinds of things for a long time. It's part of your specialty. Looking through this agreement, it feels very typical, feels very boilerplate, nothing too concerning for you on any of these issues.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, just the 3 little light touches that I needed to do. I agree with you, Mary. This is pretty straightforward. This is the agreement that Metronet has used in other communities. Just the 3 little points were that waiver of permit fees. I wanted to make sure that we all understood that we were getting consideration. We're getting this free fiber, which is in effect paying for the permits. That's important because we can't treat right-of-way users differently from one another, and so we have to get consideration for permit fees from all users. In this case, we can get it via in-kind. And then just the other areas only a lawyer would care about, just cleaning up the term of the agreement to make it a little bit clearer how the term works. And then indemnification was not something that was spelled out initially in their draft agreement. They've agreed to very standard language that you would find in any agreement like this. So yeah, this is straightforward stuff.
Very good, thank you. All right, Alyssa, back to you.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Attorney Vos. What I'm presenting on the screen is a email snapshot from a representative of CarverLink. CarverLink, we've been in communication related to that very question of course, we have dark fiber in the ground. It's going up to our right-of-way, but what happens with that next extra couple of feet? What happens if we want to light that piece up? And we have been in conversations with them, and they do have not certified grant process that CarverLink has the ability to do, which would provide us the ability to get some additional funding to help us with that next couple of feet, or get that lit up through switches and whatever infrastructure that we need. So I put up on the screen, and we included it in the agenda report because we thought it was important just to note that, yes, there's going to be some additional costs once the dark fiber is actually in the ground. That cost should be minimal through the assistance of CarverLink. They are committed to about the first 350 through 3,500 for any work that needs to be done. And if it's under that, they'll cover the complete cost of whatever that individual project is. So we're not talking about each one of those 20 locations. We're talking about each of them separately, that 3,500 getting contributed to. And then not officially in this email, but it has been communicated that there's some additional funding that could potentially come to us as well as through this project.
Okay, and that is also through
CarverLink, through Carver County / CarverLink.
Very good. Council, questions?
I don't have a question. I'd just say, I think this is a great opportunity for our residents to have choices, right? Like we only have one right now, and this gives competition and allows our residents to have more choices. So I think it's a good thing. So I'm just curious when, so if approved, how quickly would it start, and how quickly do you typically see a community being done? Like, how long did Waconia take? And
Come on up. We're going to get your steps in today.
It all depends on locates. If you tell me today, I can start tomorrow. Typically 3 days out for the locates. So probably starting next Wednesday. If we started today, we got approval. As far as project completion, I foresee this one with depending on how the winter goes, but we're going to possibly carry over into next year. I want to try to knock it out this construction season, but we are a little late to the game, but we're going to do our best.
thank you.
And so when would that service be available to residents?
All right, first LCP, I want to say no later than September of this year,
So quickly.
if I can hit the floor running, yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right. Other questions, council? All right, seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
A motion to approve the fiber agreement with Metronet.
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 6.2 is the approval of Marsh Hollow 4th Edition Final Plat. Presenting this evening is City Planner Brian McCann. Mr. McCann, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council members. Yes, tonight we have a final plat request for Marsh Hollow 4th Edition. As you may recall, they went through the preliminary plat process back in 2021, with their first edition receiving final plat approval the following year in 2022. And then most recently, they are requesting the final plat this evening for their 4th and final edition. So some background on the project. This phase specifically consists of 48 townhome lots coming off of 3 private drives from Birchwood Circle. As I mentioned, this is the final phase of the Marsh Hollow development, and it will be utilizing the amended PUD approvals for patio setbacks that was approved by the City Council a few months prior. Regarding density and our comprehensive plan, they are showing 48 units over just over 3.5 acres. We did confirm with the Metropolitan Council that this wasn't going to trigger a comprehensive plan amendment since it is consistent with the overall approved comp plan amendment from 2021 for the entire development. So no issues regarding density, even though it is over our medium density of 6 to 12 units per acre. For Marsh Hollow 4th Edition, they are looking to utilize that PUD that I mentioned with R3 high-density underlying zoning, and it is generally consistent with the approved preliminary plat from 2021. Here are the regulations that were approved for the townhomes with that amended PUD, including the first level private drive setback and a separation from the 14-foot balcony setback from the private drive, as well as those patio setbacks for 0 feet to the side and a 3-foot setback to the rear. With the case this evening, there is also a drafted development agreement included, which is subject to review and approval by the city attorney. The development agreement's pretty standard to what we usually have, including development fees, parkland dedication section, which was actually satisfied with the first edition, and the requirement for the developer to submit a letter of credit with the project. So here are some recommended conditions which were included in the resolution for approval this evening. I noted number 5 because it was originally suspected that these would be rental townhomes, but they are owned townhomes. So we just wanted to include a condition that HOA documents or covenants are included subject to review by the city attorney. So with that, I have 2 sample motions on the screen for you this evening. I'm available for questions, and the applicant is in the audience tonight.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. McCann. Council, questions, discussion on this item? All right, seeing none, I will now entertain a motion.
Motion,
I'm sorry, Councilmember Rife. We're going to do two separate motions on this evening. So okay, Councilmember Rife, please, the first.
motion to adopt the resolution approving the final plat for Marsh Hollow 4th Edition.
Thank you. And can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a second motion?
Motion to approve the development agreement for Marsh Hollow 4th Edition.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item, 6.3, is to consider approval of a comprehensive plan amendment for Huntersbrook Creekside 3rd Edition. Welcome back to our city planner, Brian McCann, again. Mr. McCann, please.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. You may recall at the last meeting with the city council, 3 requests were brought forward for Huntersbrook Creekside 3rd Edition. The first being a final plat, which was approved, and then the second being the preliminary planned unit development rezoning, which was also approved. The third item had to be continued, which was the comprehensive plan amendment we will be discussing this evening. This came forward as guidance from the Metropolitan Council for the executive lots that weren't meeting our minimum density requirements of 2 1/4. The 3rd edition density that was reviewed at the meeting on the 28th consisted of 1.56 units per acre, and then the anticipated 4th edition density comes out to be 0.76 units per acre. So what we need is a comprehensive plan amendment which would allow a lower density than our low density. So what staff have devised is a conservation residential district which would allow density between a 1/2 unit per acre up to 2 1/4 units per acre. But it must have some components of environmental preservation along with it, such as preserving wetlands or trees, and that it must also be within the shoreland overlay district. So you can see with the image on the right, I have the West Chaska Creek shown on the screen, which runs through the center of the site. Up to 300 feet outside of those boundaries is within the shoreland area, which encompasses a portion or all of the lots shown with this project. So the Planning Commission recommended unanimous approval of this during their regular meeting on May 21st, and then it also does require a supermajority or 4/5 vote from the council this evening. So with that, I have a sample motion for you on the screen, and I can answer any questions you have.
Very good. Council, questions or comments on this item? All right, seeing none, I will.
I just had one quick. So what we're actually doing with this is almost creating a special district within this planned unit development, and will, if I understand it, have even more free and available space for this particular piece, but it has to be within the shoreland overlay district, correct?
Correct, yes.
From a conservation and pollutant standpoint, this actually is, one could be construed as a benefit to this particular parcel, right?
Yes, Councilmember Ivansky, that's correct. What this would essentially do is limit the amount of land being disturbed adjacent to shoreland areas or areas which we're trying to preserve, such as wetlands and trees.
Okay, and then it's the developer's sort of aim to kind of have a conservation, marketable, executive home site that broadens the appeal to a certain minded buyer that would seek that unit, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Very good. Any other thoughts, questions? All right, with that, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution approving the submittal of a comprehensive plan amendment for Huntersbrook Creekside.
Thank you, Councilmember Ivansky. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, item 6.4, is regarding Hometown Bank's preliminary plat. Again, Brian McCann. Mr. McCann, hard working this evening again.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council members. This will be a very short presentation this evening. Just to highlight the 120-day deadline requirement for review of preliminary plats does expire for this application on June 21st. The Planning Commission did review this during their meeting on June 4th and recommended denial of the proposal due to some missing site plan components that staff were requesting but didn't receive from the applicant. Due to that, the applicant has requested to rescind their application this past week. So City Council should not engage in any discussion on the application and should not actually take an action on the request this evening. So that's really all I have for you.
Okay, very good. So there are no, there's no action needed here, so there are no more items to discuss on our regular agenda. So we'll move on to reports and emerging issues.
I actually just had one question about this. So,
Councilman Yudowski, please.
so this, we have some sort of late arriving information since our packet was created, correct? And one might presume this to be exigent circumstances on this? Of the saying, I want to withdraw even though we were planning to deny?
It's a possibility, certainly. I will note that the applicant does have ownership of the site, though, and the city has been supportive of a project here, similar to what they're proposing. There were just some minor issues that need to be adjusted before approval can be considered, and they're working on those site plan modifications. We just didn't receive them in time for that 120-day statutory deadline requirement.
Okay, so, I mean, and council could maybe you assist in this. So we had a plan to deny the application so that we didn't move into a 120-day essentially default judgment type activity that would have put an approval on it, and then subsequently the applicant withdrew. Would it be prudent for us as council, given these unique circumstances, to formally accept that withdrawal at this meeting, or are we statutorily good with just the presentation made to staff?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, fair question. I was in on the staff decision on sort of how to process this, so good to point it to me. You know, in the normal course, if a developer is told by staff, either before getting to the Planning Commission, at the Planning Commission, after the Planning Commission, going to council, is told by staff that the staff recommendation is going to be for denial, it's always the view of every city I've worked with that the applicant, the developer, can pull the application, can say, I don't want to go through that. It's my application. I want to withdraw the application. In the normal course, if your proposed agenda hadn't been published, hadn't been put out to the public, I think typically staff would say, okay, we're going to confirm in writing that you've withdrawn the application, so there isn't a 60-day rule, 15 statute that requires us to act timely. There isn't an issue with that. But staff just wouldn't put it on the agenda at all, right? They would have withdrawn the application. You wouldn't have to do anything about it. The application just goes away. In this case, because the agenda had gone out, we decided that we ought to leave it in front of you to note what the public had seen already, that this was on the agenda, and then just report that they had withdrawn it. And so that's a long way of saying no. My view is, and I think it's the view of all cities that I've ever worked with, is that the applicant alone controls the application on whether it goes forward or whether it's withdrawn. We can't prevent an applicant from withdrawing an application, and for the same reason, we can't accept or not accept the withdrawing of an application. It's up to them to withdraw it.
Okay.
So that's been confirmed. It's been confirmed here tonight. I think staff has done that separately as well. And as Brian said, you have not indicated in the past that you're opposed to development of the site. You want development of the site, though, to comply generally with your requirements, and that's the issue that we've been working through. So,
Okay, well, thanks for that explanation. I think that we all share the belief, I suspect, that we don't want to foreclose any options for the landowner or the developer, that, you know, we're generally supportive of this and don't want to create anything that could further complicate things down the road. Thank you.
All right, very good. All right, moving on to reports and emerging issues. Attorney Vos, you're up first. Anything from you this evening?
you know, Mayor and Council, just only because I've reported it in the past, we had another internal Kennedy and Graven Municipal City Attorney Group meeting, and the issue of cannabis regulation came up again, and there has been a fair amount of activity with the state agency that's dealing with that. There's nothing concrete for me to report to you. I guess I just want to let you know that we continue to keep our ear to the ground on that. We've got a couple of lawyers that are involved in a subcommittee that are working on that model zoning ordinance that will ultimately go out to cities around the state for consideration. So we're near and dear to it. I don't have anything to report, but it's continuing to brew and move forward.
Okay. All right, very good. Ms. Swanson, anything from staff for you?
One item, Madam Mayor, I will pass it over to our city clerk to talk about the new artwork that's behind us.
Very good. Ms. Eddisfold, please.
Madam Mayor and members of the council, we have new art on display as part of our ongoing collaboration with Zeller Studios. This collection is by several artists. They are all portraits on either canvas or linen, and they are an oil-based painting. We welcome the public to come and view the beautiful collection during normal business hours, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30. And these portraits are available for purchase, and we could provide contact information.
Very good. Thank you, Claudia. All right. I would encourage all who are kind of viewing to come on in and take a look at this artwork up close. It's quite beautiful. All right. Members of the council, is there anything from any of you this evening to report? And seeing none then, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Can I get we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, and we stand adjourned.